Thank you for being here with me today. I hope you're having a beautiful day wherever you're watching from. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I'd love to know. Now let's jump into the story. The smell of my apartment was always kind of comforting. A mix of old books and that metallic scent of too much late-night coffee. For a decade, it had been the quiet backdrop to one goal: building my future. And that future was tied to a number I checked religiously: $250,000. It wasn't just money. It was everything I had worked for over 10 years. Every skipped lunch out, every worn pair of shoes I pushed through another season, every vacation I didn't take, every extra gig I crammed into my weekends, it all added up to that figure. That money was my foundation. A down payment on a modest home with a bit of grass and space that was truly mine. I'd spend late nights browsing listings, picturing what life would look like in my own place. It wasn't just about buying a house. It was about finally building something that no one could take away. But of course, my parents always had something to say about it. Their advice wasn't helpful. It was controlling. "Is a savings account really the smartest place to keep all that money, Michael?" my mom would ask on our weekly Sunday calls. Her tone always carried that edge, part worry, mostly judgment. And somehow, the conversation always came back to David, my younger brother, the son to our family's little universe. David was the golden child. Every little thing he did was a breakthrough. When he needed money for college, my parents shouted from the rooftops about the sacrifices they made. When he wanted to launch his vague startup idea, more sacrifice, more family praise. Meanwhile, I worked hard, paid my way through school, got a solid job in engineering, and saved steadily. My parents barely noticed. I'd get a half-hearted, "That's nice, Michael," before they jumped back to David's latest genius move. I wasn't their son. I was their plan B, their backup wallet, the quiet one who didn't cause trouble and never needed anything. They didn't even see it. They built their whole idea of family on top of me, thinking I was just the dependable base they could keep using. I genuinely thought they meant well, that their advice, their constant push toward David, was just their clumsy way of loving me. I believed that their need for control was concern, that their lack of support wasn't personal. I thought families were just like that. I didn't see the truth. Their house, where I grew up, was a symbol of everything they pretended to be. Perfect lawn, matching pillows, family portraits carefully curated for every visitor. But the air always had that fake floral spray smell my mom used, trying to cover any hint of real life. My dad's deep voice kept everyone in line. Nothing too real, nothing uncomfortable. Conversations always circled back to David's greatness. And my savings account? That was the trap I didn't see coming. I'd opened it in high school and never changed the mailing address from their house. At one point, I gave them the login, maybe to help with something small, maybe just because they offered. I didn't even think twice. It was family. Family shares, right? The signs were there, but I didn't catch them. My work laptop, a top-tier machine, started lagging. Programs stalled. Files took forever to load. Websites wouldn't open. I did everything: cleanups, antivirus, system checks. Nothing worked. It was a small, nagging issue that never went away. Just a weird little tech problem I chalked up to bad luck. Then the questions started. "Are you still thinking about buying that house next year?" my mom asked, her voice syrupy sweet. But there was something sharper underneath. That's when it hit me. I checked the account. Empty. A decade of sacrifice. Gone. When I confronted them, my father didn't flinch. He looked me in the eyes, smirked, and said, "Thanks for your naivety. Your money has now secured your brother's bright future." I laughed. I laughed so hard I could barely breathe. Because the money they drained, it wasn't mine anymore. And what they thought they stole wasn't what they expected. "Michael, prices are outrageous right now, you know? Are you sure your savings are even keeping up?" That sweet, syrupy tone my mother used on the phone always carried an edge, like her words were needles wrapped in silk. Every Sunday call left me feeling poked and prodded, like my life was a family project open to scrutiny. I tried brushing it off as my own anxiety about buying a house, but something deeper, more unsettled, always lingered. One evening, frustrated beyond belief by my laptop's slow response, I opened the task manager to investigate. Most of the IXE background processes looked normal, but one entry caught my eye, some random technical-looking name I didn't recognize. I grabbed my phone and searched it. What popped up made my blood turn to ice: remote access, key logging, screen capture, webcam activation. This wasn't just some random glitch. This was spyware, tracking software, installed deliberately. I sat there frozen, trying to tell myself it had to be a mistake. Maybe I'd downloaded something bad. Maybe a scam link? But deep down, something darker was crawling into my thoughts, something I didn't want to believe. Could it have been them? No. No way. My parents, the people who raised me, but the timing, the weird questions, the login access I had given them years ago. It all clicked, and my stomach dropped. My fingers shook as I logged into my bank account later that night. The page loaded slowly, each second stretching out like a bad dream. The balance that used to show 6 beautiful figures now barely registered enough to survive a month. Gone. I made a choking sound, some wild cross between a gasp and a sob, and clicked the transaction history. Scroll after scroll. And then I saw it. A single transfer. Just last Tuesday. $250,000. All of it. My entire life savings wiped clean. The room spun. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself. Like there was barbed wire wrapped around my lungs. This couldn't be real. It had to be a mistake. A hacker. Some digital glitch. It couldn't be them. Not my parents. Not my family. The next day, I drove straight to the house on Maple Lane. My childhood home. The ride was a blur. I just kept replaying possibilities in my head. Any explanation that didn't involve betrayal. But when I pulled up, the same picture-perfect yard greeted me. Rose bushes trimmed to military precision. Driveway recently sealed. Inside, the air hit me like a wall. Floral air freshener, overwhelming and fake. David was there, lounging on the couch, completely at ease. My parents sat across from him. Their surprised faces quickly turned to something more guarded once they saw mine. I didn't waste time. My savings. All of it. $250,000. It's gone. My mother gasped theatrically, hand to her mouth like she was in a soap opera. Oh, Michael, that's terrible. Were you hacked? My dad leaned forward, doing his best impression of concerned authority. Are you sure, son? Maybe you misread something. Online banking can be tricky. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and opened the transaction log. I shoved the screen toward them. The proof was there, glowing under their carefully curated expressions. One transaction. Last Tuesday, $250,000. To an account I don't recognize. Their eyes followed the screen. My mom's face paled beneath her perfect makeup. My father's expression shifted. His fake concern dropped. The mask slipped. Well, Michael, he said, his voice turning colder, more commanding. We facilitated a transfer for the family. For the family? My pulse pounded in my ears. Without asking me? You took everything I'd saved, everything. Oh, don't be dramatic, my mom snapped. It's family money. We helped you when you needed it. Now it's time to help David. Invested, I whispered, the words sour in my mouth. You stole my future, my home, my independence. My father stood then, tall and imposing, voice booming just enough to fill the room. David glanced up, sensing the tension but still detached. Stole is a ridiculous word, he said. David needed a final investment to get his company moving. This is about securing our family's future. My future was that money, I said, my voice cracking under the weight of it all. And you threw it away like it meant nothing. Then my dad smiled. That cruel, thin smile that told me everything I needed to know. He leaned in, his voice low, mocking. Thanks for your naivety, Michael. Your money has now secured your brother's bright future. Some of us know how to use assets for the greater good. Something inside me broke then, but not the way they expected. It wasn't just hurt. It was the realization that they'd never seen me as a person with dreams, only as a tool, an ATM, a shadow to be used for the spotlight that always followed David. There was this pressure in my chest, tight and rising, right behind my eyes. And then it happened. A sound broke out of me. It wasn't a sob. It wasn't even a scream. It was laughter. Bitter, dry, disbelieving laughter. A sound that felt foreign in my throat, like someone else was using my voice. They stared at me, my parents and David, faces locked in a mix of confusion and offense. My father's smugness faltered, eyebrows twitching. My mother leaned forward, her tone sharp and suspicious. "What on earth are you laughing at?" David looked uncomfortable now, shifting like a kid who just realized he walked into the wrong room. But I couldn't stop the strange wave that was rising inside me. That twisted laughter slowly unraveled into something else. Cold, hard clarity. "You think you took my future," I said, my voice shaking but slowly gaining strength. "You think you fooled me. You think you won." I shook my head slowly, the grin still tugging at my lips, though it felt wrong, more a mask than an expression. "You have no idea. They thought they had broken me. But what they really did was spark something. The money they took, that wasn't just cash anymore. That was the trigger. They didn't ruin me. They exposed themselves. That moment changed everything. The hurt didn't destroy me. It refined me. Stripped away every last drop of blind trust I'd been clinging to. In its place was something leaner, colder, and a lot more dangerous. Clarity. This wasn't about getting back at them for the money. That was the surface-level wound. This was about facing what lay beneath, the rot they'd hidden for so long under fake smiles and family dinners. This was about stopping them, fully and completely. When I left that house, I didn't feel shattered. I felt lit up from the inside, like steel in a forge, reshaped through fire. That awful floral air freshener clung to me like a ghost, one last attempt to pull me back into their curated illusion. But I was done with illusions. Back at my apartment, I couldn't stay, not with Spyware likely still watching. I wiped the laptop clean, file by file, memory by memory. Years of work, photos, documents, gone in a digital purge. But it had to be done. I packed a bag and headed to Emma's. Emma lived on the other side of the city, far from Maple Lane and everything it represented. Her building was older, worn, and full of soul. When she opened the door and saw my face, drained, wide-eyed, probably still trembling, she didn't say anything. She just pulled me into a hug. It was the kind of hug that makes your knees buckle. Safe, real, her place smelled like fresh coffee and old novels. Earthy and honest. I sat on her couch and started to talk. First in pieces. Then the words tumbled out, sharp and fast. The spyware, the money, the confrontation, the laughter, the smile. Emma listened quietly, her jaw slowly tightening. When I was done, she leaned back, staring into space for a moment. Then, with a quiet fury in her voice, she said, "Mike, I always knew something was off. The way they treated you. The way everything was always about David. But this?" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Cybersecurity wasn't just Emma's job. It was her passion, her instinct. While I sat there barely holding myself together, she was already at her computer, fingers flying. "That kind of spyware isn't just for spying," she muttered. "It's access. Total access, especially if you ever use that laptop for anything sensitive." We didn't sleep. Fueled by her determination and way too much coffee, we started combing through everything I had left. Old bank statements, account access logs, anything I could legally retrieve that dated back before I wiped the laptop. Emma focused on the transfer, the $250,000. It went to a domestic account, yes, but that was just the start. Within hours, the money split, broken into pieces, funneled through a maze of shell corporations, temporary holding accounts, and shady-sounding LLCs, Not $1 went directly to David or anything that looked remotely like a startup. It was professional. It was calculated. It was money laundering. My parents weren't just manipulative. They weren't just emotionally abusive. They were running a full-blown fraud network. I sat there staring at Emma as she broke it down, my hands cold and clammy. They'd used me, my savings, my trust. But more than that, they used my identity. Because she found something else. Emma recovered log data from the spyware. She pieced together files they had accessed remotely. Tax returns, loan documents, applications, even old scans of my social security card and driver's license. They weren't just siphoning my money. They were building a whole system around my identity. They were opening accounts, moving money, signing documents, all under my name. If they ever got caught, it wouldn't just be on them. The trail would lead back to me. Their clean-cut, invisible son would be the perfect scapegoat. The room spun again. That sick twist in my gut returned, but this time it came with anger sharper than anything I'd felt before. They hadn't just robbed me. They were setting me up to take the fall for their crimes, and I wasn't going to let that happen. The knock came early, calm, deliberate, and unexpected. Behind the door stood federal agents, badges out, expressions unreadable. The reading of rights was quiet, practiced. What followed, I only learned later from case files and Emma's connections. My parents' reaction? Predictable in its unraveling. All. That polished confidence, gone in seconds. My father, whose voice could once silence a room, turned a shade of white I didn't know was possible. My mother fell apart, her carefully composed persona crumbling into frantic screams and scattered lies. Denial, blame-shifting, bargaining, it all spilled out in a spiral of desperation. She even tried to redirect blame onto me, said the accounts were mine. That I was somehow involved. But the truth was louder than their lies. There it all was. Undeniable. Unshakable. The logs showing spyware planted on my computer, the digital trail of their hot money flowing through my account, the forged documents, in my name. The case was airtight. What started as a small item on the local police blotter quickly exploded as the full extent of the fraud surfaced. Regional, then national media picked it up. The picture-perfect family on Maple Lane, the one neighbors admired, the one that held barbecues and donated to school fundraisers, was exposed. Not for who they pretended to be, but for what they were. Criminals. And then came the second wave. Of hurt. Relatives called, some to express shock, others to accuse. Years of believing my parents' lies clouded their view. The whispers spread fast and louder than the truth. David, unsurprisingly, chose his side. Not with the victims, not with justice. With them. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't question the reality. Instead, he lashed out. He filled social media with rage, claiming I'd betrayed the family, called me a liar, a jealous saboteur. He painted himself as the real victim. Every post dripped with the same rhetoric our parents had spoon-fed him for years, that I was the weak one, the bitter one, the problem. He used twisted facts, vague accusations, and pity to gather sympathy. It stung, not because I didn't expect it, but because deep down some part of me had hoped he'd see the truth. But he didn't. His final betrayal, loud and public, was a brutal confirmation of just how deeply the poison had sunk into him. The legal process dragged on, months of hearings, filings, slow steps toward resolution. Watching my parents stripped of everything they'd built on lies was both painful and oddly satisfying. They looked smaller, older, still tried to defend themselves, still acted like they were misunderstood. But the evidence held. Emma and I kept showing up. Our case never wavered. My real savings, every penny, remained safe in the new account. The $250,000 they stole, it was seized as part of the criminal assets. The network they thought they'd hidden collapsed in front of them, with my lawyer's help. And through a mountain of documentation, I cleared my name. The identity theft that could have ruined me was neutralized by truth and diligence. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't clean. But it worked. The process of reclaiming my name and my life wasn't a single moment. It was day after day of choosing to speak the truth, calmly correcting rumors, and eventually deciding to take my power back by telling my story. After almost a year, the legal proceedings ended. My parents were sentenced. It wasn't a movie. There were no final words, no apologies, just the dull, cold announcement of their punishment. Justice, not redemption. Emma stayed beside me through it all. She wasn't just my ally. She became the one constant I could actually count on. Our conversations moved beyond the mess. We built something quiet and real, based on trust, not blood. And then I bought a house. Not the one I dreamed about for 10 years. But it was mine. I'll never forget the weight of the key in my hand. The click of the front door unlocking for the first time. It was quiet inside. Echoey. Unfurnished. But it wasn't empty. It was peaceful. There were no suffocating photos, no fake floral scents, no performance, just clean walls, the smell of fresh paint, and possibility. I'd built something real, something earned. I had fought like hell to carve out a space where I was safe. A space that didn't come with strings, with guilt, with manipulation. The eye scars are still there. I don't trust easily. I double-check everything. The pain of losing the illusion of family lingers, especially around holidays or when I see someone with the kind of relationship I used to wish for. But that pain no longer defines me. The $250,000 was just money. What I really gained was worth far more: freedom, truth, and the strength to walk away. Toxic families will twist you, warp your view of the world, make you feel unworthy of even basic respect. They will gaslight you into silence. Setting boundaries is not cruelty. It's survival. It's love. For yourself. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most will be the ones who harm you the deepest. But facing that truth, no matter how ugly, is the only path forward. Choosing to protect your peace, to build something new when the past tries to keep dragging you under. That's where healing begins. I built my house brick by brick. But I built my new life on something stronger. Truth, self-respect, and the unshakable. Courage to say enough. So now I'll ask you, have you ever had to choose between your well-being and the people who share your blood? What boundary changed everything for you?